The Brown v. Board of Education Supreme Court case set a precedent that replaced the separate but equal decision that was set by the Supreme Court. After this case, the public schools began to slowly desegregate. The court ruled that separating children in public schools on the basis of race was unconstitutional. The U.S. Supreme Court ruler Justice Breyer said that this case deeply affected not only Americans but the world. The historic decision of this case marked the end of unlawfully separating children in public schools. This case's effect on history forever changed the way we handle race in public schools. After this case, it was made a law that public schools can no longer separate students based on race. A year after Earl Warren's case, the court published guidelines requiring federal district courts to supervise school desegregation. The Justice Department argued segregation had an adverse effect upon our relations with other countries. This case's global impact can be seen as another role of America's law in the world. These are all long-lasting effects on history, as well as the Brown v. Board of Education National Historic Site that was established in Topeka, Kansas on October 26, 1992. It was created by the U.S. Congress to commemorate the decision aimed at ending racial segregation in public schools.
In 1951, 13 parents sued the Board of Education of the city of Topeka, Kansas. The three-judge district court ruled in favor of the Board of Education. The case was appealed to the Supreme Court. There were 5 cases concerning the segregation in public schools: Brown v. Board of Education of Topeka, Briggs v. Elliott, Davis v. Board of Education of Prince Edward County, Bowling v. Sharp, and Gebhardt v. Ethel. These cases were consolidated and went in front of the Supreme Court and were argued by Thurgood Marshall. The Supreme Court could not come up with a decision. In 1953, the case was reheard. Chief Justice Warren brought all the justices to the unanimous decision declaring public school segregation unconstitutional.
Segregation of white and colored children in public schools has a detrimental effect upon the colored children. The impact is greater when it has the sanction of the law, for the policy of separating the races is usually interpreted as denoting the inferiority of the Negro group. Any language in contrary to this finding is rejected. We conclude that in the field of public education, the doctrine separate but equal has no place. Separate educational facilities are inherently unequal.
Oliver Brown was the father from Kansas. He was an African American. Linda Brown was a daughter, and the Board of Education was also a huge party that was involved. Linda faced a long commute to school every day. Linda had been denied admission to an all-white neighborhood school just 5 blocks from her home. Case became a class action suit involving 5 states. The case reached the Supreme Court. Thurgood Marshall was the first African-American Supreme Court justice in the United States. Then the Chief Justice, Earl Warren, wrote the opinion needed on May 17, 1954. It was then read. African Americans argued that segregation generates a feeling of inferiority as to their states in the community that may affect their hearts and minds in a way unlikely to be done. More blacks registered to vote. Membership in NAACP soared, especially in northern cities. Most of the South remained opposed. A year after the case, in 1955, whites in the Deep South remained determined to block its implementation. 3 African Americans, including Emmett Till, were brutally killed that summer. When classes started in the fall of 1955, Mississippi schools remained segregated. Years later, the government decided segregated schools were violating Supreme Court decision, so whites withdrew them from public school with African Americans just to keep them away.